President of the United States Donald Trump has given the green light to a bipartisan bill to strengthen sanctions against Russia. The decision by Trump was announced by one of the co-authors of the document, Senator Lindsey Graham.
This is a very timely decision since Ukraine is making concessions for the sake of peace while Putin only talks, continuing to kill innocent people.
The senator added that the bill would give Trump the ability to punish countries that continue to buy cheap Russian oil, which funds Putin's war machine. The bill will also serve as leverage over countries such as China, India, and Brazil to encourage them to stop purchasing Russian oil.
I genuinely look forward to a very strong, truly bipartisan vote indeed, hopefully as soon as next week.
Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, during his speech at the opening ceremony of Cyprus's presidency of the Council of the European Union, hinted that the war in Ukraine could end as early as the first half of 2026.
We note that the negotiations have reached a new milestone together with our European partners and, of course, with the US and all members of the coalition of the willing. We understand that this war could end while you still hold the presidency of the European Union.
This means we're talking about the first half of 2026, since Cyprus will be presiding then in the EU Council until the 1st of June this year. According to him, the EU plays a key role in the peace process. He added that sanctions against the Russian Federation, support for Ukraine, and strengthening defense capabilities all contribute to overcoming the enemy.
A new package is being prepared. Many steps are being taken to strike at Russia's shadow fleet because every dollar Russia loses is a loss for it as an aggressor.
Earlier, the president of Ukraine told journalists that the US continues to negotiate with the Russians about ending the war in Ukraine. According to him, various options are being discussed, but so far Russia is turning up its nose. At the same time, he added that Ukraine's partners are strong enough and can twist Russia's arm if they want to.
In the United States, hundreds of protesters took to the streets after an immigration officer shot and killed a 37-year-old woman. The incident occurred on January 7th in Minneapolis, Minnesota. A video surfaced online showing an immigration officer opening fire on a woman in a car. Later, the U.S. Department of Homeland Security stated that the deceased, Renee Nicole Good, allegedly tried to run over the officer and that he fired in self-defense. U.S. President Donald Trump made a similar statement on his social media account.
The woman behind the wheel was extremely unruly, obstructed and resisted, and then deliberately and violently ran over the immigration officer, who it appears shot her in self-defense.
Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey categorically rejected the Trump administration's claim that the agent fired in self-defense, stating that the shooting video contradicts this. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz also refuted the federal versions of the incident and urged people not to believe the propaganda machine. After the incident, Minneapolis residents took to the streets demanding the removal of immigration and customs enforcement officers. Cities like Miami and San Francisco also joined them. On the eve of the incident, U.S. President Donald Trump spoke at a meeting of Republican lawmakers in Washington, where he stated that the Democrats might impeach him. According to the American leader, this will happen if the Republicans do not win the midterm congressional elections.
We have to win the midterm elections, because if we don't, they'll find a reason to impeach me.
During his speech, Trump also displayed some odd behavior. He deliberately made comical faces and produced various strange, unsettling noises, thereby openly mocking transgender athletes and their participation. U.S. President Donald Trump may give the order to assassinate Iran's supreme leader, said U.S. Republican Senator Lindsey Graham live on Fox News. Commenting on the protests, he addressed the Iranian authorities, threatening them with destruction.
Donald Trump is not Barack Obama. He will protect you. Ayatollah, you need to understand, if you continue killing your own citizens who are demanding a better life, Donald Trump will kill you.
In addition, Graham called the Iranian regime Nazi and openly stated that help is already on the way, hinting at possible consequences from the US for the Iranian authorities. He stated that there will be change in Iran.
This will be the biggest change in the history of the Middle East, freeing you from this Nazi regime. People of Iran, help is already on its way to you.
Lindsey Graham also recalled the detention of Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro. The senator noted that if anyone opposes Trump and tries to undermine his authority, the same thing will happen to them as happened to the president of Venezuela. Earlier, the American leader Donald Trump himself also declared his readiness to intervene in the situation in Iran. Mass protests in Iran have been ongoing for 12 days now. People took to the streets because of the collapse of the national currency and massive inflation. They are also demanding a change in the country's political leadership. The rallies have spread to more than 50 cities and towns across the country. The Iranian authorities are trying to stop the protests by force. There are fierce clashes between protesters and the police. Earlier, human rights activists reported that at least 36 people have been killed during the protests. More than 1,200 have been arrested by security forces.
Orator 1 inhales in the background. The Danish Ministry of Defense has confirmed that it will shoot first and ask questions later in the event of a US invasion of Greenland. This was reported by The Telegraph. According to the publication, the rules from 1952 are still in effect. That is, if foreign troops invade the country's territory, including Greenland, Danish soldiers are required to open fire immediately without waiting for orders from above. This specifically refers to a military invasion. In this case, the principle is defense first, investigation later. Earlier, US President Donald Trump confirmed his intention to annex Greenland, a NATO territory that he considers important for the national security of the United States, specifically if necessary by military force. According to experts, this move will likely mark the end of the NATO alliance. As political analyst Taras Berezovets notes, the future of NATO is at stake, as well as the relationship between the US and Europe.
All of this is already intensifying the contradictions between the United States and its allies in Europe. The Europeans have all come together as a united front and declared that they support Denmark and will continue to support it going forward. But everyone understands that no one in Europe is ready for direct confrontation, not even military confrontation, but any confrontation at all with the United States. Everyone would like to avoid it.
European allies are already holding urgent talks about how to respond to a possible US attack on Greenland. As Politico writes, Europe has 4 options to prevent the annexation of Greenland. The first is a compromise that would allow Donald Trump to claim victory while Denmark and Greenland could save face. The second is large-scale financial support for the island to offer terms more attractive than those of the Americans. The third is a tough economic response to the US, including trade measures. The fourth option is the deployment of European troops in Greenland as a deterrent factor. The US Department of Justice is preparing to bring criminal charges against members of the crew of the oil tanker Bella 1, which was detained in the Atlantic Ocean for violating American sanctions. The vessel sails under the Russian flag. This was reported by US Attorney General Pamela Bondi. She stated that the United States executed a warrant for the seizure of the tanker, which was transporting oil from Venezuela and Iran, both of which are subject to sanctions.
Previously, Bella 1 was found guilty of violating sanctions imposed by the Office of Foreign Assets Control for its role in a network supporting foreign terrorist organizations.
According to her, during the operation, the ship's crew tried to evade capture and escape from the US Coast Guard. Despite this, the tanker was eventually stopped. Bondi also reported that the US Department of Justice is monitoring the movements of several other tankers, which may be subject to similar measures. A statement about the oil tanker Bella was made by US Vice President J.D. Vance.
It was a fake Russian oil tanker. They tried to pass themselves off as a Russian oil tanker in order to bypass the sanctions regime.
On January 7th, the vessel was detained by the US military. The reason was a violation of US sanctions. At the end of December, the US tried for the first time to detain the Bella 1 tanker in the Caribbean Sea on its way to Venezuela. The vessel was to be stopped as part of the oil blockade announced by Donald Trump. Washington stated that the tanker was sailing under a false flag. The crew refused to allow the Coast Guard on board, changed course, and soon painted a Russian flag on the hull. Later, it became known that the tanker had changed its name. It is now called Mariner, and its home port became Sochi. After that, Moscow sent a diplomatic note to Washington demanding an end to the pursuit of the tanker. Russian authorities have already accused the US of violating maritime law and engaging in piracy. Russian military correspondents, meanwhile, write that this precedent raises serious questions about Russia's actual ability to protect its own merchant vessels in neutral waters. Later, it became known that the US had seized another vessel from the Russian Federation's sanctioned shadow fleet in the Caribbean Sea, the tanker Sofia.
Residents of St. Petersburg, Russia, took to the streets to protest the demolition of a historic site, but were detained. According to the Telegram channel Astra, on January 8th, security forces and migrant workers began demolishing the building of the former research institute of the pulp and paper industry. Since 2019, activists had been defending it. Residents of St. Petersburg demanded that the authorities recognize this example of post-war Soviet architecture as a cultural heritage site, but their request was denied. People tried to stop the demolition by entering the building and blocking the excavator. However, riot police later began detaining protesters in a rough manner. One of the detainees spoke about the protest on video.
We broke through the ring made up of migrants, or rather presumed migrants, right? I think the protest was successful, but well, right now I am detained and sitting in a police van.
According to the Telegram channel Astra, law enforcement detained 19 people. The protesters were also obstructed by migrants who had been offered temporary work in local chats the day before.
We need people for a cordon tomorrow. A building is being demolished, so you'll need to stand around the perimeter to keep local residents from entering the area. The job is easy. Police, emergency services, and an ambulance will be nearby. Everything is official. Tea and restroom access are provided.
It is noted that in February 2025, the Scientific Research Institute of the Pulp and Paper Industry was added to the list of sites possessing characteristics of a cultural heritage object. However, the building never received full protected status. And in December, the authorities issued a demolition order for it. A residential complex is planned to be built on the site,